Hi. So, much like Julia, I also tried ecstasy when I was 18. Unlike Julia, my parents do not know still. But that's what my story's about. I tried it. I was a freshman in college with my 3 friends, Emily, Becky, and Kermit. We took these pills on a Friday afternoon. Later we went to, it wasn't really like a rave, it was like a raver party. I don't really have time to get into these details actually, so I'll just say it was amazing. It was everything everyone had promised it would be. I loved everyone. I ate the best lollipop of my life. I actually still remember like sitting on a toilet, sucking on this lollipop, thinking this is what gemstones would taste like if you could eat them. And then I said out loud to myself, just so I could hear it, gemstones. But the next day, by next afternoon, first I started feeling just like tired as it was wearing off, and then I started feeling dead inside, and then I started worrying that I'd like messed up my brain somehow, and then I started feeling very depressed and ashamed. This is particularly because of 2 things. One, at the party, I had started making out with this guy, Justin, and we were both so into it that I was pretty sure I had exposed my butt to like a bunch of people that I didn't know. And 2, after that, Justin and I went back to his room and had sex, which was great at the time because I was deeply in love with Justin at the time. But now I was realizing that no, I wasn't in love with Justin at all. I wasn't even into Justin, and it had been just the ecstasy. I wasn't a very experienced drug user. This was news to me, that this thing could be like temporary. I was shocked. I felt betrayed. I was appalled. I just could not believe how much I didn't love Justin. And it was all the worse because I had known Justin before. We had been friendly, we had mutual friends, and I'd known that he was kind of into me. And so, but I just didn't really like him that way. Even though he was really cool, he was kind of nerdy cool, which is like really cool. And he played the stand-up bass in the orchestra. Everyone said he was really great. I'd never heard him play, but that was fine. He just wasn't my type. And I wasn't really into him, and I had specifically avoided him for this reason. And now, I was gonna have to have this really awkward conversation where I explained that like nothing was gonna happen between us, even though I had just told him that I loved him very, very much, like 40 times. And I told him that like his eyelashes were soft like lamb's fur. And I told him that I thought it would be really beautiful if like when we died, we were buried together with all of our friends in like a one big grave. Which I realize now what I was describing was a mass grave. But at the time, I wasn't picturing it like that. I was picturing it like a giant bed underground that was like white and had like plenty of space for all the bodies to stretch out. Anyway, so I had left Justin feeling great that morning, and now it was like 4 p.m. on a Saturday, and I was just miserable. So I just kind of threw myself onto my dorm room bunk bed in my clothes, and I crashed. And I just thought, I was hoping that maybe I'll just go to sleep. I'll sleep for like 12 hours. I'm just tired. And when I wake up, I'll feel better. But I woke up in 1 hour because the phone rang. It was my parents saying they were here, just as we'd arranged. They had gotten to town and were ready to take me to dinner the way they had planned and told me about 2 weeks ago. Which I knew about, and I hadn't totally forgotten about it. It was just that when I decided to take these drugs the day before, I just thought that if you took drugs on a Friday afternoon, you would be fine by Saturday night. This, by the way, I should say, this was like old school ecstasy, back when like they cut it with like heroin and like possum bones or something. Like, it was the kind of ecstasy where the come down could be very harsh, but I was not prepared for this. And so then once I took the pills and all the excitement and the thing with Justin, I had totally forgotten about this. But now I remembered. So I said to my dad that, yeah, great, I would meet them at the restaurant, can't wait. And I thought to myself, like, fine, this is your punishment for doing drugs and sleeping with someone you didn't really like and showing your butt, and, you're just gonna have to suck it up. So I dragged myself to Consiglio's, an Italian eatery, which would have been a treat normally, but now it's like the thought of eating a meatball. It wasn't even that like meatballs seemed disgusting to me. It was like they suddenly seemed like shabby and hopeless as a food. And my mom was really into bruschetta at the time. She had like just discovered bruschetta, and I really liked it too. But it just seemed like such a sloppy, stupid food. It's like a crust of bread, and it's just piled with like this mess of crap. I just had no appetite, you guys. And one good thing was that my parents, they talk a lot, so I don't usually have to be like a sparkling conversationalist. And I just, my mom was already like giving me the update on a bunch of like distant relatives that I don't know. You know how moms do that? She was like, great Aunt Dorothy's friend, Irma. And you're like, no, I don't know. And she's like, yes, you do. You met her she was at your christening. And you're like, I didn't meet anyone at my christening. I was a baby. Anyway, that was going on. And normally that can just like kind of, I can just sit there. And that can just kind of wash over me like a dull, humid word breeze and not really pay any much attention, except that tonight I can't just relax because I actually feel right now like I am going to pass out, which is not normal for me. It doesn't matter how sleep deprived I am. Even if I have to sit through a really boring class, it was normally fine because I am just too neurotic. I have like a base level of anxiety that just works. It keeps me awake and it protects me from ever falling asleep in an embarrassing situation. Like I literally think this is the only time in my whole life where I was actually worried that I was just gonna like face plant into a plate of food, like in the movies. And so I had to like be vigilant and stay awake because if I fell asleep in front of my parents, they would know that something was really wrong. And it would be hard to like convince them that I hadn't been drinking or something, which would have been bad enough, let alone like, no, I'm just coming down off of this like drug. It's like an amphetamine kind of, but it's kind of like heroin. It makes you really want to touch people. Like I couldn't get into that. So, and now my dad is talking about great Aunt Dorothy, and it's so boring, and her daughter, and how his cousin, and how she called him. Okay, and then I did perk up a little bit, because that was unusual. So my dad's describing this whole branch of the family that like he had been estranged from for a long time. There had been some kind of complicated falling out when my grandfather died when I was 3. There was something, controversy about the power of attorney, and then the will, and my grandfather wasn't really a great person, like not an easy person to get along with anyway. It was a big whole other story. And so he hadn't talked to these people. This is one of the reasons why I didn't know them for years and years and years. And I realized that he is getting really emotional, actually, about the fact that his aunt, my great aunt, Dorothy, and his cousin, 2 of his cousins, had called him in the last couple weeks. Dorothy was sick. She had lymphoma, but they thought she was gonna make it, but it had made them remember that life is short, and they wanted to let bygones be bygones. They wanted to take the high road, make amends, whatever. And my dad's sitting there telling this to me, trying to be like a stoic dad, telling me how, we didn't even apologize. We didn't even go over any of that stuff in the past. We're just letting it go. And his cousin, I don't know what that's called, his cousin, Mary Catherine Phelan, again, I have no idea who that is. She is gonna bring her whole family, actually, to the East Coast for Thanksgiving. And we're gonna have Thanksgiving together. It's gonna be like a reunion. And he's telling me this, and how he's so happy that I'm going to be there to like meet these relatives again, and how he's actually sorry that he hasn't made these amends earlier because he's deprived me of this relationship, and it was so sweet. And I'm thinking, like, if this poor man only knew the kind of like slutty, drugged out girl he was talking to. And also, isn't it a sick, hilarious coincidence that this Mary Phelan person happens to have the same last name as Justin Phelan, the guy I had sloppy, insincere sex with the night before? And then my dad says, wouldn't you know, Mary's son is in your class. And one of the things I'd like to do is meet him and introduce you to him and take you both to lunch. And he's like, his name is like, he said some name that wasn't Justin. It was like a J name. I don't remember which one it is. And I was like, Justin? And he's like, yes, it's Justin Phelan. So that's how I found out that I had sex with my second cousin. It would now be much easier and much harder to tell Justin why we couldn't be together. He faked like a stomach flu the next day to get out of lunch, but we did have Thanksgiving together as a family. It was a really beautiful reunion for some. So, don't do drugs, but if you must, take some time out now to look into your family tree, type it up maybe, print it out, fold it up into a little square, put it in your wallet for reference. Thank you.
Lizzie Prestel, ladies and gentlemen.